So hi everyone, I'm here live from FutureNet Asia and I'm joined by a colleague from Elisa Polystar, Gerard, who's the CTO there, and I'm going to ask a few questions to pick his brain on what is a central theme for FutureNet Asia this year on AI and autonomous networks. So jumping into things, it would be great to understand with all the trend around AI and ML, outlining what Elisa Polystar's strategy here is around AI. How are you leveraging AI, machine learning to actually support in moving towards autonomous networks? What are some of those core goals that help you guide that strategy?
Yeah, Darius, thanks. I think, let me say first, I think AI ML capabilities have been going from shiny object, new technology that everybody's excited about, to really becoming the kind of native layer across our portfolio. And it's very quickly. I think in the course of a very short time, this has gone from, oh, there's certainly some potential here to, that this is potentially transformative for vendors, but also for our customers. So clearly, there's a lot of excitement around that. We are investing in machine learning capabilities, statistical models, etc., typically for forecasting, anomaly detection, etc., and very much into kind of classic AI, Gen AI use cases, where we look into augmenting the user experience, provide them information about the system, but also, kind of go towards next best action recommendations or agentic capabilities. So this all is now emerging and becoming available. It's very exciting. It's gone from capability to core native layer in our solution. And I think Elisa Polystar has really two solution areas. One is the customer experience assurance, which is characterized by fine-grained user data, typically received through probes, and that's one part of the solution. Let's say that's the classic portfolio. It's been around for a good amount of time. And the emerging portfolio is our network assurance capabilities, which is taking the data from network elements, radio nodes, fixed network elements, take that in and analyze it and make it available and draw conclusions from it. Elisa Polystar is best in class in both areas. But what we really bring to the table is the combination of those, and taking the fine-grained user data and the network assurance data and combine it to draw conclusions for operations, but also for all kinds of support, marketing, sales, etc., other functions for our customers. Also, what's kind of specific to Elisa Polystar as a company is that we are owned through Elisa, an operator, which is kind of the leading operator in Finland, and that helps us. And it's a very innovative operator. Like unlike other folks who have been looking a lot towards the vendor community for innovation, Elisa has been really innovating themselves over the years, and they have done great work there. So with that kind of innovative ownership, Elisa Polystar, the company that productizes these solutions, has a real good dialogue and kind of understanding what is it that operators need, what is it that kind of Elisa needs, and there's a bidirectional channel there that really helps us to make the best of these solutions and bring the best solutions to the market.
That makes sense. And I think one of the things that you touched on was that there are a few different domains where AI ML may have a role and may be able to transform the telco. So I kind of wanted to double click and understand from your perspective, where do you see the major impacts coming, especially in the shorter term, across things like network ops, customer experience, the revenue model or the commercial model for telcos? Where is that transformation from AI gonna happen first and in the long term?
Yeah. Let me start with the path towards where this journey is going first, and then we can talk about the components. I think what really AI ML is credibly enabling is a path towards autonomous network operations. That has been a kind of a goal before, but it's largely been done through kind of hard-coded logic, which has taken us very far, but it does not allow us to go all the way. And I think these new capabilities have unlocked the journey towards these automated or fully autonomous networks. So the immediate impact that we see is in the network operation space. where we kind of shift from a reactive troubleshooting posture to a more proactive anomaly detection and root cause analysis. Clearly, there's a lot of time spent and a lot of cost OpEx kind of contained in finding issues, resolving issues in these large complex networks. And that includes resources from within the telco community, but also from the vendor community. They have to come together, resolve these things. But those are problems that are typically very complex and difficult to solve. So if we can kind of take away more and more of that effort that goes into these problem solving, time spent, I think that'll have a tremendous impact. With the advent of these agentic AI capabilities, this is at this point, this sounds still a little bit futuristic, but this is happening. I think this is happening in the very near term, where we have like agentic capabilities that support the personnel in kind of going out and finding issues and finding, the help of reasoning, trying to kind of pinpoint issues and make better and better next best action recommendations, right? With these capabilities that we are now unlocking, we are working on this. I mean, we can see it really emerge in front of our eyes. We see that the operations of this network will be changed. Now, that doesn't mean that we turn the switch and everything is fully autonomous. That will be a journey, and we can take more and more of the issues that we are seeing and kind of address them in an automated way. I think that's very exciting. And then go hand in hand, that goes with the customer experience. And the better the quality of the network is, the better the customer experience is. That's true in the, just making sure that it's available and reliable, but that's also true in the interaction with the company. So that when you interact with the telco, that interaction has a better quality, and that either the person that you're talking to or that interface that you're talking to has more information that are relevant for you. We've all been in this situation trying to resolve an issue with our telcos, and this is a tough thing. This is not always the best experience, and kind of getting better and better there, will be something that we can help with from the data side. We can provide the data, but also we can create the analytics and the insights from the data that helps a customer support agent, or that helps maybe an AI chat agent to kind of make better recommendations or conclusions. Efficiency gains, I think on the forecasting side, clearly on the CapEx side today, many forecasting models are still live in spreadsheets. Nothing totally unexpected here. These things work in general, but they have some inefficiencies. And the better we can forecast CapEx, the more pinpointed we can allocate CapEx to kind of create the best customer experience and the best outcome for our telco customers, right? If we can use these new technologies to do that, I think that's a good thing. And then on the OpEx side, clearly, if you kind of remove more of the troubleshooting and reactive time spent, you can dedicate that time more into kind of forward-looking planning and build out of these networks.
That makes sense. And you mentioned some of the specific capabilities that these AI models, and as we move potentially even to Gen AI and agentic AI as part of this, the capabilities that those models will require, and the idea of moving towards more reasoning, et cetera, et cetera. I was wondering, kind of as a double click into that, if you could share some elements of Elisa Polystar's products or portfolio where you have examples of those AI-driven capabilities or features, and how those can actually translate into value delivery, I suppose, for the operators.
Yeah, the first feature that we're really bringing to market that has an MLAI core is our geolocation capabilities, where we have built our own models, training our own models based on customer specifics that allow us to do geolocation with the data that's available from these networks. And that's the first thing that's kind of going out this year. And that's followed by anomaly detection, which is starting with our customer experience assurance space, but also directly applicable to our network assurance space, where we have like the customers impacted. If we have some anomalies in customers impacted, and we can then go down and together with this anomaly detection, go right into a root cause analysis and look at a number of parameters that what we call segment of interest, and then can drill down and get some intuition about where the root cause of the problem is. And that is also something that we are targeting for this year to release to our customers. So we are super excited about this. This is here and now. This is not some future things. And then we have things that we will bring out very soon as well, is forecasting capabilities that are based on these prediction models, and what we call co-pilots or syntax helper, where, for example, we have one of our solutions, a big part of our network assurance solution is data ops, like a kind of where we kind of get data from multiple sources in our customer's network into the system, enrich it, contextualize it, and that is done largely with the syntax today. And we have built capabilities in our product to help our customers, or in some cases our engineers, to build that syntax and do these transformations, where we go into a certain table and transform a value, enrich a value, and to do that easier, we have created the syntax helpers. And this is, so we have kind of, on the one hand, for the root cause analysis, we are using very capable reasoning models, like the state-of-the-art models. And then in other spaces, we are using very, very small models that have a very small footprint, can run, in very small scale environments, I'd say, for in AI small scale. So there are purpose-built models that serve specific syntax helper functions, and then there is the reasoning models, and we use both, and that's an exciting, I think it's also from an industry, an exciting place to learn about this and kind of see how these capabilities, how can we make them really impactful for our customers. And then I think last thing that we'll see emerging is generally these co-pilots, where it's kind of systems that kind of, on the one hand, expose your documentation to the user, so that you can interact with documentation. But it goes beyond that. It's not just that, like not just ingesting a couple of PDFs, but really it goes also into that context information about how our table structures are built, what the specific parameters express and how describe the parameters in the system. There are thousands of parameters and KPIs, obviously, in the system. And through our Copilot capabilities, we can expose this and make this accessible in clear language to users. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. Just in the last couple of months, I can tell you, Darius, I think the team has been very energized about seeing the new capabilities, and everybody's wants to take this to the customer, and we can see how this creates value. And what will happen in the next years, there will be, obviously, now there's a lot of excitement about ML/AI. You will go through the usual, cycles that every new technology has. So there's going to be an adoption cycle, and maybe, some kind of down and upwards again cycle, and we'll go through that. But what is clear to us already, that this is at the core transformative for our customers, for us as a company, and that now we are at this very exciting stage where we are from, hey, these are the raw capabilities, and now this hits reality and kind of goes into our customer networks. And this is where it gets really interesting, where we learn and we can see, this is how our customers are actually using it, and this is how we kind of take this technology and create real value. So that's a very exciting time, I think, for everybody who likes technology and it's been following the telecom industry.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to start to see some of those practical examples, I guess, to keep pushing this forward, and for operators to keep investing in what's next. So yeah, look, thanks a lot for your insight, and really useful to hear, what are you actually doing in practice? What are you seeing? And where are some of the early opportunities for telcos on this journey? Because it is a journey towards autonomous networks. It's not just an end state to get towards. There's value to be unlocked around each stepping stone. So yeah, useful to hear your perspectives on that, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Darius. It was a pleasure.